Welcome to the Rowdy Talladega Race Preview. I'm Buck Fever. This is Bassmasters bringing home everything you need to know about racing at Talladega.
Everything you need to know about being lucky at Talladega, Buck, because you're sitting there in your little cocoon and you're looking in the rearview mirror and you're hoping like hell the dude in front of you doesn't wreck. What are your tactics to survive this thing? Because the first job of any driver at Talladega is to survive.
One of the tactics is definitely not to get racy at first, not to go crazy at first. You've just got to stay in the race and avoid the wreck so that you can then win the race. Does this mean going to the back and hanging out for a little bit? If I'm Denny Hamlin, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best to hang out exactly where Jimmy Johnson is, not get that cat out of my sights.
Well, there's a couple ways to do it. Number one is you can go off the back, but if you're going to do that right off the back strategy, you need to be like a half a straightaway to a straightaway behind the main pack, because if you're just in the back of the pack, they all wreck in front of you, you're going to get in it anyway. The other part about that is if you do that, you're not going to have as much knowledge at the end of the race about which line to get into, who your car works best with. You're not going to have developed those friendships that you might need at the end of the race. So you're giving up a little something, although by shortening the race that way, you may avoid the wreck. So it's a couple interesting choices that you have to make. The other thing about Talladega is when you're in the pack, when you're in the draft, and you're there in your little cocoon, you don't really get to decide what happens to you. This is a race where drivers will tell you more is out of your hands than at any other race on the circuit. Here's what Carl Edwards had to say about the pros and the cons of Talladega.
I think everyone fears Talladega the most, you know what I mean? And it's because of that uncertainty, because anything can happen. But that can go two ways. You know, you can also look at that place as an opportunity. You know, if you play it smart and you have a little bit of luck, you can maybe gain ground on people there. So it could go either way. So for that reason, Talladega is kind of I guess a wash, you know. Makes you nervous, but you never know.
And then, of course, Buck, we got to talk about the wrecks, because typically there's a big wreck here.
Yes, typically there is a big wreck here, and you never know who it's going to collect, and it could bunch the point system up. But if we look at the points, there's really only 3 guys in this. I mean, I think Kyle Busch is 172 out, so you would need a massive wreck early on for any of those other guys to really get pulled back into this and make this chase, make them a factor in the chase.
Well, if you talk about losing points, obviously you can lose them in a wreck. And the thing about Talladega is, because everyone essentially runs the same speed, handling's not an issue here. Okay, this is the one track where handling's not an issue. There's plenty of grip. You got your foot on the floor. You're wide open all the way around. So the cars stay in that big pack. Now, what that means is, if you wreck, even if you wreck late, you could lose a ton of points, because most of the guys are still going to be right there unless there's a wreck early that takes out a bunch of cars. The other thing about the points is you don't have to be in a wreck to lose a bunch of points. You could be in the lead draft and lose 50 to 70 points. You could lose a ton of positions on that final lap. And that's the third key to Talladega, which is, when do you make your move? You're in this big pack of cars. You want to get to the front at the right time, but you can kind of pass at will during the race out there. If you want to get to the front, just hook up with some guys, get in the right line, and go to the front. You go front to back to front to back. When do you make your move at the end to be in the front when it counts?
It's really tricky, because we've seen guys do it on the last lap, on the last turn, and it also who your dancing partner is out there. You're going to find that different drivers hook up together and they have their own little dancing partner. They get together and they're phenomenal together. So that's going to be very interesting, especially vis-a-vis teammates.
Yeah, you've seen in the past, and we'll probably see on Sunday, that 2-car draft where guys get hooked up, just 2 of them with this race car, and they go 5 to 10 miles an hour faster than everybody else, which is remarkable. But at the end, you're going to want to have some partners. And the thing that's interesting about that is horsepower comes into play here, because if there are cars that have even 1, 2, 3 more horsepower than the other race cars, they're going to be cars that everyone else is going to want to follow, Buck. So they're going to be able to dictate their fate a little more than maybe some of the other guys. Now, before we leave you, we've talked about the big one, Buck. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had an interesting take on getting flipped at Talladega, which we've seen a couple times. Here were his thoughts.
I don't really ever worry about going airborne. Hell, it happens so fast, you're completely upside down before you realize that you have come off the ground. I remember at Daytona in the Nationwide car, we were, hell, I just landed when I understood that I had just went upside down. You know, it's just it happens so fast and it's over with. I used to tell people that going upside down and getting airborne in a car like that, going that fast, is an experience that you can't really go buy a ticket for. And, so I kind of don't cherish or enjoy, ain't the right word, but that experience is uncommon, and not many people get the opportunity to be involved in something like that. So it's wild, and it's something you never forget.
All right, that has been your Rowdy.com Big Three for today. Flipping and flying at Talladega. I'm Bassmasters. He's Buck Fever. Put your picks or your thoughts on Talladega right below, and we'll see you on Monday after the race to talk about what happened. So you like that flipping upside down thing?
Oh, it's so awesome. It's interesting. It's light. It's airy. It's like whipped cream.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.